Chanel, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Oh my God. I can't believe I've been talking for 10 minutes and nobody could hear me. Could you hear me when I was talking before?
No, I thought you had me muted and I couldn't hear you.
Oh, well, hey, audience. Hello. My name is Michelle Gardner-Ince, and I just gave you this whole big spiel about, why I'm passionate about small business. But we'll cover that at the end if we get a chance, or I'll do a specific session. But hi, I'm Michelle Gardner-Ince, host of the GI Factor, a LinkedIn Live kind of podcast, interview slash education inspiration type event. I'm going to be going live right now. I'm going to start out with a couple of times a month, but we may increase that. But I want to tell you, most of all, you may have seen me go live as part of Wednesday's Demystifying Government Contracting audio LinkedIn audio session. And I got the opportunity to be a beta tester on that. And that's how I got started. And I wanted to share the platform with the small business community. And, oh, by the way, to give them the opportunity to ask questions, to gain insight to small business success. And one of those amazing human beings that has joined me for almost over a year, I want to say now, it's gone by so fast, is Chanel Glover. Chanel, I don't see your presentation though. Can you add it to the stage? Say add, share, or present. Anthony, hey buddy. AP, you thought it was on your side. No, it was on my side. How do I sound now? Do I sound okay? Chanel, I still don't see your presentation. I can't hear you. You're muted now.
1 second, I'm pulling up my
Okay.
presentation.
Okay, no worries. So no, AP, it wasn't on your side. It was on my side, and I can't believe I was just going so passionate. But anyway, I do want to say that, for those of you who may not be aware of the Equity and Action Plan, each federal agency, almost 99 of them, had to provide a equity action plan. And you can go and put into the your Google search equity action plan and the agency. Let's say you're going after DOD or the United States Air Force, who has an amazing equity action plan, and they detail exactly in action steps the actions they're going to take to increase the number of underserved community vendors, to increase their and meet their small business goals, how they're going to approach engagement with industry, small business industry in a different way. So you definitely want to take a look at that. Are you ready? I don't see it yet, Chanel. So do you all have any questions for me out there while Chanel's bringing her presentation up? Hold on a minute. Let me take a look here. So I'm going to give y'all a minute to ask me anything while we're waiting on Chanel. This is going to be an amazing presentation. And her presentation is all about the rescue, the American Rescue Act and the American Rescue Recovery Act. And, Chanel is such a great mind. I had to go and do a little research. I'd heard of it, but I didn't realize how, impactful it was. And many of us who don't know about it may not be in on the conversations of how we can maximize and get some of that money. It was initially mentioned by Linda Gray on day 2 of of the National Small Business Week sessions we've had, where she talked about how nonprofits and even small businesses can engage and get engaged with corporations, banks, and city, state, to garner some of that small business, some of that money, that grant money, uh, to enable their small business success while serving and helping to improve the community and bring and keeping that money in the small business community. So I wish I would have learned about it a little bit sooner, but sooner than later. And Chanel's going to talk to us about that, as well as about teaming. Any ask me anything, anybody. Let me look on LinkedIn here. Hold on. I'm gonna bring up my LinkedIn uh, here. Let's see here, because I can see the comments better.
Can you see it now? The presentation.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yep. I got it. All
All
right.
right.
So I'm going to interview you first before we get started, because I think it's important. You're an amazing young lady.
Thank you.
Chanel is out of the California area. She is a business advisor. She's a business coach. She is a well sought after expert with tech seeking to move into the government space and expand their business line and their business. But guess what? She's also working with small businesses at the local level on behalf of the Los Angeles Chamber and other small business resource providers. She is skilled not only as a federal employee, she's been a contract employee, now she's a small business owner, and the wealth of her experience is amazing. I got to meet her for the first time in January. I can't remember, it's January or February. But let me tell you, she was holding back. She was holding back when we would meet weekly, probably because I was talking too much. But she was holding back. But let me tell you, this amazing young lady has a reservoir of experience, a reservoir of contacts, and her strategy of how to get at government contracting is amazing for someone so young. Thank you so much for joining, Chanel. How you doing?
Thank you for having me, GI. I'm
No, go
I'm
ahead.
great. Yeah, I'm great. It's busy, but that's a good thing.
Yes, it is, and thank you for doing this. I know you had an impromptu meeting, so I'm so thankful that you made it. And I would have waited for you. I would have talked another hour. So listen, no,
Yeah,
believe me, no worries,
get to
no worries.
my So yeah, I'm happy to be here and like to share this information, especially because it's timely. So whenever you're ready to start, you can let me know. But
Okay.
thank you for the intro. I'm happy to do this work. I also partner with and I advise some governments and how to implement and to better serve small businesses and to get their grant funding and make it more impactful for the small business community and underrepresented communities in general, whether it's youth, families, anything they can do, environmental. So I like to serve in any purpose where I make an impact.
Well, you are definitely doing that. Tell me, where did this passion to have impact come from? Where did it start? What was your first kind of glimpse at that's me? I love that. What were you doing, and how did it start?
Yes. So I started, I'm originally from DC. So I grew up in DC, like not the surrounding area. So I grew up in DC, and I've been exposed to a lot in politics very early. Like I remember when I did like take your daughter to work day, and we actually went to the
Mm.
Hill. And if I recall, I met Maxine Waters and like some other women congressional members, and to see someone who looks like me and at the state, local, and federal level, I knew that I loved politics. I've always loved politics. I used to read the newspaper, I'm told, since I was like 5 years old. So I've always loved politics. But then I was in the Boys and Girls Club. And the Boys and Girls Club, we started these types of policy and give back and things like that initiatives went since I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. So it started very early. And the same thing for tech. The Boys and Girls Club would actually take me. I remember I was alone most of the time. They would take me down to McLean from my community because I lived in like a housing project at that time before my mom purchased. And they would take me down to McLean, Virginia, like to all these tech events and political related things within the DC, Rockville area and things like that. So I had a lot of exposure very early on.
What was the first job where someone gave you the opportunity to really see your impact?
I would say the SBA's loan programs. I worked there. I was a consultant originally, and I converted over under a special term project under the Obama administration.
Mm-hmm.
And our program was very impactful because, well, all the programs that we were working on at that time, because it was supposed to help with the reverse or to increase the small business activity and dollars and jobs under the Small Jobs Act. So we worked on programs where it created jobs to increase funding and opportunity in communities, which was supposed to help pretty much reverse the recession. And we were able to see on microloan dollars and prime program, we were able to see the businesses, and you get to work with the universities or the end user. You get to see the impact. And I've always worked on grants in some capacity or with small businesses ever since, because I like to work on things where there's a direct impact.
Well, that's a perfect segue. We'll come back after your presentation for some Q&A if you have time.
Okay.
And but that's a perfect segue into your presentation. And I know you're going to talk about a couple of topics, but I'm going to pass it over to you. What a phenomenal, great mind. What a passionate advocate and impact. I would say impact is a perfect word for you. Everything you touch, I see that you've been there. And it's just a pleasure to watch and be in your presence, and most of all, to have access to all the things that you're doing.
Same here. Same. I appreciate you with having this platform because we need it, especially for some of the underrepresented groups and underserved that don't get the access, avenues that they should. So this is impactful. So I enjoy doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm going to bring up your presentation.
Okay.
I'm going to get out the way so that you are going to be the only person that they see, and I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. So we're going to discuss the American Rescue Plan Act. So here I'm just going to give you an overview of the act. So the American Rescue Plan Act is a stimulus package that was implemented by President Biden in response to the pandemic. There was in total 1.9 trillion. There's 360 billion that's earmarked for state and local governments, and it's for different purposes. The allocation depends on what your state and local officials, they had to submit or tell the federal government what they're going to use it for. But it expands across multiple verticals, like what they plan to use the funding for. But there's funding out there. The funding is still active. It has to be spent down by December 31st or somewhere in that week, 2024, for state and local governments. So I'm going to go to my next slide. So the funds are for cities, states, counties, towns, nonprofits and mostly nonprofits are supporting the initiatives to make sure that the funds hit the communities and purposes that they're supposed to, but then some governments, they can choose to use it for administrative purposes like their public safety, improving water systems, highways. Some are choosing to use it on housing efforts to increase equity, to help people pay back past due bills, utilities. The school systems receiving an abundance of it. But again, these things are determined by your local leaders. So the key thing for you to do is to go to your state level budget. When you at your state level budget or on your state website, you should have a search where you can put in American Rescue Plan Act, or you can just Google American Rescue Plan Act and the name, your state's name, your county, your town. They have to submit what they're doing with the funding. They report quarterly, but then they also have annual strategic plans and budgets where they show people, hey, we plan to spend 50% on administrative. We plan to uh, give money for gang intervention. And they'll name at your state and local level, you should know who the funding went to. Like, what is the nonprofit or what's the, department that has the funding? The reason why I mentioned this, if you know that you can support something, or that you see where is not something not being funded, you can reach out to your local officials and inquire about it. You as a constituent, you have a right to reach out to your congressional members. You can reach out to your state and local leaders. You can ask for a meeting. You can ask for, details about what they're doing with these things. If it's already allocated to another entity, sometimes they get funding and they may need support. But if you don't reach out, or you don't know where they are in the process, or what you can do to help them, and everyone just sits back and pretty much says government will take care of it, then this is where, in my opinion, there's a gap in communication and understanding with government and the general public. You can get involved. You should know where your money is going. So again, if you would like to know where the funding is at your state and local level, you can either look at the budget for your state. You can look at the annual spend for American Rescue Plan Act funding. They should, and I'm sure they probably have to make this public, because I've been able to find it easily for most people who have reached out. And then your school systems may have funding. Small business hubs, they may have funding for things. So the funding for small business and technical assistance, some states, counties, and cities are even giving out grants. I shared something earlier today. So some are giving out grants to reduce the impact of the pandemic still for small business community. The reason why small is important to fund small businesses and keep them thriving, because the small business community, they contribute a lot to our national economy. We want to keep the small businesses healthy. So if you're a small business and you have not looked at your local government, state, local websites, I advise and recommend you do that, because they're also at every level of government. You have your state, your county, your city, your town. You have funding, especially at the state, the federal, state, and county level. You may have lending. You may have lending programs available, grants, technical assistance. For example, I work on several programs where technical assistance is provided free. When I say technical assistance, it can mean that you can get free business advice. On some of the programs, I've even seen like CPAs, attorneys, free legal advice for small businesses. I work on it in some of the topics I cover is marketing, business development, government contracting, posturing for grants, identifying these opportunities, how to write a proposal, what's important for you to, increase your likelihood of a win. So strategic planning. Some of these services are free. I know, for example, the under the Biden administration, they had the Community Navigator program. I know it's ending for some places, but if you go to SBA.gov, where you go and find your SCORE, your SBDC, your Women's Business Center, they're also new. So you can go and join some of those programs. these are the same consultants most of the time where you have to go and pay, high hourly rates or monthly retainers, and you can get the services free through your small business technical assistance centers. In addition, when you're registered with your centers, your state and local governments, you're going to be the first to find out about any funding opportunities. So this is how many governments market. They're hoping that you're registered in those small business offices and procurement vendor registrations. If you're not there and they send out a blast, then you don't know about it. So I strongly recommend that you engage more with your local government websites, because many of the programs that are out now are actually funded by the American Rescue Plan Act. And if it's funded, it will tell you that. But here on this slide, on number 3, it just tells you some of the things that the funds were spent on besides small businesses, unexpected costs, and like revenues. That's the administrative. So they can, your officials can decide on how they want to spend the money. But also as a constituent, you can weigh in or you can inquire about, when are they going to spend funding on things that, you feel, or especially if you have groups or associations and you all collaborate and go as one, then you can discuss with your local officials like how can they work with you to help more people with the funding that your state and city is receiving, either from you the constituent or from the federal government. So for many of the communities that receive funding, they're also able to use these funds on things besides small businesses. For example, underrepresented and underserved communities. They could use it to reduce, to reduce crime, for health equity. It's so many purposes that the municipalities are using the funding for. But it's also important that we know what they're spending the money on, because if you don't know what they're spending the money on, you don't know the opportunities that are available. But then also for small businesses, it can hurt you if you don't know what's available, because I've seen some governments put out grants and all you had to do was be in business during the pandemic and take a loss and you would receive a grant. And they were trying, like, some of these governments have been trying to market this thing and they're not getting, the high level of response they expected. That's because businesses probably aren't properly registered, or they're not engaging with those government websites and social media. So you're missing out on pretty much grant money, even as a for-profit business. And that funding, for the most part, is tied, for state and local, is more than likely tied to this act. So I'm saying that to say this is probably like a one-time thing, unless they decide to add more funding to it. So if you miss out on that opportunity, you may not get it, anytime soon with that office. So I've already talked about like the $360 billion that's earmarked for the aid for the communities. And for some of them, they're able to use this funding, as you see on this slide 5, to make it to make the economy not only more robust but inclusive. So the inclusive part is where they should be doing something to serve or benefit underrepresented communities, or communities plagued by violence or health disparities and things like that. Some of the I'm glad to get to this slide, because some municipalities, they provided direct assistance. You may have seen where some states and local governments have pilot programs where they're providing people with $500 a month or $1,000 a month, a select group of people. Some of those funds may be coming from this funding, because those are things that they can use it on. And you see how it has businesses. So even for some of the funds, small businesses can benefit from direct assistance from these programs. Again, that will be at your state and local level, unless it comes from Treasury or SBA or USDA and DOE. So they also have some federal programs that are for innovation and small businesses and technical assistance, EDA. So the key thing is just to do your research beyond trying to market and get a contract. There are lending opportunities for small businesses that are supposed to be more attractive, and for businesses that cannot get traditional lending opportunities, you can use some of the government programs, but you have to, go to the website to see it, or you know, join associations that's related to your line of work so that you don't miss out on these opportunities. And then, so I'm here, I just wanted to give some examples of programs that were provided through the funding. So, for example, we had PPP program. We had the Shattered Venue Operators program for arts and, entertainment venues, museums. Then they had a restaurant fund, employee retention tax credits. Some of them have small business grants to help small business with expenses. I've seen some where they have grants for small businesses to secure commercial spaces. Well, no, nonprofits to secure commercial spaces, or for small businesses to use the grants for expenses to run their business. So there are all types of programs. It just depends on what your state and local officials chose. But if you don't engage with those offices, then you may miss out on the opportunity. And all of the applications, of course, they have a time period. So you want to make sure that you're checking in. I would say until this funding ends, I will recommend that you check in quarterly. Just I already touched on this, but just to go a little deeper into how to track any federal funds, any state funds, local funds. The key for any opportunity, whether it's contracts, grants, lending, anything that pertains to even some private sector initiatives that are public-private partnerships. So sometimes when you see developments going up, whether it's homes or commercial real estate, metro, many of those things are funded or partially funded by the government. Schools, you will be surprised, hospitals, so many different entities within our country receive funding, government funding from different sources. So the key thing for anything is to follow the money. If you see if you go to the federal budget and you see where funding is allocated to an agency, you go to that agency's website. The agency is going to have a budget. They're also going to have programs. You get those programs. You go to that program's budget. You see where they allocated the funds from. So another disconnect is many people may look at the federal government and say the federal government should do this and that. Sometimes the federal government did fund something. Maybe the president did fund something, but your state and local officials and your state and local government was allocated the funds to get it to you. So this is why it's important that you follow the money. You go to your so once the federal government allocates the funding either to private entities or municipalities, you follow that money. Okay, now my state has received funding. Who did my state fund? Did they fund the county, cities directly, or did the county receive funding for my city? Sometimes your city, your county can go and receive their own funding. Even police departments, public safety, schools, they can receive direct funding, grant funding from government. It depends on, how it's structured. But the key thing is for you to be able to follow these things. Even government contracting, for example, you may see a large contract at the federal level, and you're going to bid against established companies. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you may have more opportunity or a higher chance of getting a sub award, or it may go to your state and local. A piece of that may go state and local, and then some state and local governments, they do a more, I would say, I'm not going to say a better job, but they are able, they have maybe the bandwidth to be able to track in a legislation time frame to make changes, more easily, where they can have larger companies to do more business with small businesses. So if you register at your state and local level, you can receive subcontracting announcements, invites. If you're bidding at everything on a federal level, you may be competing um, with established companies, companies that already have partners, and you keep seeing. I hear businesses say it all the time. Oh, I see the same company. They keep winning all the contracts. They had it for 20 years. Okay, so if a company, and it's not saying that you're not qualified, but if you see a company doing business, with the office, and the company has 500 employees, and you're by yourself or you have one or two, you can keep bidding, but also you can think of other strategies. So you can say, hey, maybe I should, look into subcontract. I should look into state and local. I should reach out to my small business office, find out what certifications they're using. Then some of these things, you don't need to reach out to anyone. You just need to use the government websites. At every level of government, if you ask me general questions, I can go find the answer. And for some, even complex right away, because the answers are in the data. I can look at an opportunity. I can follow the money, see where it's going, see how long someone had it, see who's awarded, and you can find out so much about it. Go research that company, see who they're working with, see what other projects they worked on. These are ways for you as a small business to take advantage of funding that's out there. You can even reach out to the offices if you think you have something to contribute, even to your leaders, and say, hey, my company does this type of work. Let us know if there's any, if there's any opportunity, or you can get on the schedules. Some state and local places have like master agreements, or a bench of consultants that are available and qualified. These are much easier ways to take advantage of opportunities, and especially if you're interested in following the money and like how the money is allocated. A consulting firm, for the most part, for many of these opportunities, agencies hire consulting firms. They hire, small businesses, large businesses, to help them to figure these things out. If you're an expert in this, even if you're one person, you can go to these websites where they have procurement, or they may have like even smaller POs, like purchase orders, and where they put in things on the charge cards too, and they can buy your services for advisory. But if you do not know about these things and you just keep going after all these large prime federal contracts, which I don't discourage, but there are other options, especially for new and emerging small businesses. So how you follow the money. I mentioned it before, but I'll just go over it. How you follow the money, you go to your federal, if you're looking at funding at the federal level, you go to the federal budget. You can go to the agency's budget. It'll show you how much they spend on administrative, how much they spend on a program. Then you could go to that program's website, find out how much they're going to fund whether it's a contract, grant, or loan. You can find out this information in usaspending.gov. But also, most agencies, they put who won the award and how much it's for, and they have a history of this. So you'll go there, and sometimes you can see where an entity had the work for 20 years. So things like that is telling. It's not saying you don't have a chance, but you can also go become a partner of that company. Inquire about teaming agreements. Teaming arrangements or partnerships. You don't always have to be the prime. And then if it's something that you feel government's missing, maybe they don't have the answer. So how I sometimes get involved, if I think it's something that I can contribute, maybe they have a consulting firm there. Maybe you can create an opportunity for yourself, because in the end, they want to solve problems. So I like to create opportunities for myself to make impact at the same time. And even because I'm going to do this work, whether I'm getting paid for it or even if I don't, a lot of this work, I'm going to do it anyway, but why not get paid for what I'm going to do? So learn how to create the opportunities for yourself. We see things, we see where they miss it. If you know they missed out on helping a small business community, reach out to them. And sometimes you'll be surprised. They'll say, you reached out to us, there's a problem, but how can you solve it? Anytime I go to any customer and I see a problem, I make sure I have 1 to 3 solutions for them, because I would like to be a part of that solution. And if I just go with the complaint and I'm not ready to bring an answer for them to remediate or resolve their issue, then it can just fall on deaf ears. So you just, you also want to make sure that you're prepared for the things that you are presenting to them. You want to make sure you're prepared to help out, or if you're if you're looking for an opportunity, how can you help them to remediate something? But also, you don't have to give away this information free. They governments, they do business like everywhere else, where they use small businesses, consulting firms, technical experts. They bring people in to solve problems. So create, find the issues. And when one customer tells you no, that's one customer. You're going to get a yes. And sometimes your no's will build you up to your yes. And ask for feedback, and make sure you're receptive to feedback, even if it's something that you may not see wrong. I'm open to feedback, and because it can also make you your presentations better, or you may find something that they did incorrectly, whatever the case may be. If you don't ask for feedback, you just walk away uncertain. So here on this slide, and I'll share this after, but it has the SBA has some of the programs that are funded under American Rescue Plan Act, but also you the Department of Treasury has American Rescue Plan Act programs listed, and then on your state and local level, they also provide you with quarterly reporting of what they spent the money on, and then you can find a lot of that at Department of Treasury's website as well. And I gave some examples already, but I'll just share a little more. So American Rescue Plan Act funding, if you see technical assistance centers, which are like your small business centers, your centers where they're providing free workforce development training, your schools are starting to provide more programs. These are examples of what localities are doing with the funding. So again, go to your state and local website. Make sure you're going under your American Rescue Plan Act funding. It tells you the title of each program that they funded. If this is something that you feel that you would like to take advantage of, you can either reach out to whichever department is listed there, or you can go to the website and find and inquire about it. If that doesn't work, you can reach out to them. If you see where there's a gap in places, gap in services or things that you think that your state, city, county should spend some of their funding on. Now, they may have already made decisions about that, but the people hold the power. And also, if you receive feedback at your state and local level where the funding may have already been allocated, they already spent the funding, you can also get on small business committees and associations at the federal level and your state and local level. Get involved, because if you're involved and you're helping them to decide on these things, or where their money is going, that's different than just sitting back waiting for them to make decisions about money for your community and your groups. As a business owner, you and the local businesses, what you need. If you all are not involved in the conversation, then that's a problem. So I strongly suggest that small businesses, parents, community members, not even leaders, everyone has a part in this, because politics and government policy impact everything around us, every one of us in some way. So, it's just not something that we should say. I know most people, and of course, politics is something that some people don't want to get involved in, but you're not getting in politics when you are getting involved in how you are being impacted from the food you eat, the water you drink, the ground you walk on, to public services, the traffic, the highways. It's not only about businesses and schools. Everything has some type of policy impact or funding impact that, yes, it ties back to politics. Thank you, Michelle. I'm open for Q&A if anyone has questions. I can't hear you, Michelle. I still can't.
Your camera's off. You
Okay.
still there?
Yeah, 1 second. 1 second. I'm about to take the
I
present.
took it down.
Okay,
They
okay,
can't see it.
okay.
Well, y'all, wasn't that amazing hearing all about the city and state opportunities? And oh, by the way, it's May, right? And she said the end of the fiscal year or calendar.
No, the calendar year is when it has to be, it has to be expended and like on the books. But
By December 31st.
yes, but many of the
Gotcha.
programs are like they if they haven't started, then in my opinion, they're late. But they have to need to be on the books, soon, because it's
Yes.
ending. So many of them are shooting. Many of the programs I know that they are aiming for, if they're not started yet, they need at least 6 months. So now is the time.
Got it. Got it. Do we have any questions from anybody? So, Chanel, this whole thing of teaming is really intriguing to me. Would you give folks who are just starting out, or who have never partnered, they've just
Mhm.
kind of done it on their own, what should they do at the city and state level first from a teaming aspect, and then move into the government contracting?
Yes. So pretty much most of what I've recognized, most of the companies that, some companies decide to only do federal, but many companies that are at the state and local level, they also work on federal projects. So the key thing is to find partners that have projects, or that would like to pursue projects where you can add to them. You can do this just by general research. If you go in for state, even for state and local, go and see who has won contracts with related to your codes. Another thing is to use keywords, because the government at every level, they're starting to consolidate, probably to get more for for their buck when they're putting out those large bids. So go and see who has won work that's related to your work, or who offers services. Go to their website. Don't just stop at, okay, they have 20 million, I'm going to reach out. No, go do your homework. Go to their website, because the same way the federal government receives calls and emails all day, the companies do as well, and they're selective. And sometimes I've noticed they're stricter and more selective than even the government in selecting partners. So when you go to a partner, you also have to show how you can add value. If you're just going to a partner and just saying, "Hey, give me a piece of that contract," and you don't show them where you add value, or where you're willing to do research and help find them customers and things. I've recently spoke with the company, and pretty much the prime said, "You go find an opportunity and bring it back to me, then we can do business." This is something that's common. I can't hear you, Michelle.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep my mic muted because I got this cough, this allergy cough. But I hear small businesses say that all the time. Well, they told me to go find a opportunity and come back. So why are they getting that told to do that? What do you think the origin of that is? Because that's not a unique thing.
No, yeah. So if to start, this is just my approach to protect the companies that I work with, because I partner companies together. Like I partner companies. Where large businesses may reach out and say, "Chanel, we need 10 companies to do this." Okay, so I'll vet the companies, but I tell my companies, this is what I recommend they do to protect themselves. One, you're going to do an NDA. And then two, you're going to make sure you sign agreements so that they cannot go and take your information you're giving them and go
Yep.
partner with someone else. So make sure you have agreements in place. What language you want to use, that's up to you and your attorney. Then let's talk about attorneys and government contracting. And this is something that I worked on it, so I feel comfortable saying it. Sometimes attorneys and CPAs, they may not have they may have they specialize in their field, but when it comes to government, especially the federal government or state, you know, you need to get people who are familiar with that. Because if you go into an agreement and it's too general and it doesn't talk about what happens if you bid on something or you doing something in violation of 8A or WASB or service disabled veteran, and that attorney isn't aware, that's still on you, owner of the company. You still have to answer for that. Prime, subcontractor. So make sure that you do your research also on whoever you use for professional services. So get the agreement in place before you go and do all this work for this company. If the company wants you to bid in team and you're going to write the proposals together, share each other's networks, you need to get in writing that if they decide to do otherwise, it has to be some stipulation for you to still, you know, either get a work share or something. You don't just give away your free information. And the reason why I'm saying that, because I've witnessed over and over again. Actually, I know from experience, but I'm glad it happened to me early on. I was in a kickoff meeting. 3 companies came up to me and said, hey, agency recommendation that we get you on our bid. A large company came up. The company was the prime for a long time. And so I told my smalls, I'm like, And then so they were like, go ahead. So in short, they won. I was supposed to help lead some of the audits. I never heard from that company a day in my life ever since. And I was one of their lead primes. So
they used your stuff and ran off.
Yes,
and I call them IPTs, intellectual property thieves. That's my name.
Yes, and they do it, and companies still reach out to me and say, "Hey, can we use you on the bid?" I said, "Yeah, if you send me over the work share," and then that's the end of the conversation. So it's fine if I miss out on those opportunities because they may not be in my favor anyways. I also know companies that don't get it in writing; they'll just say we're partners. This happened recently to an underrepresented business. The company said, I'll give you over 20% work share verbally. Put them on a team in agreement and gave them 5%. It's nothing they can do about it. After they brought the customer, helped them with the proposal. So this is why you need to get these things in writing. And
absolutely. Yeah, and one of the phrases, Chanel, that I've seen is they'll say for the work show, they'll say up to 10. Well, yes. 0 is up to.
Yeah, that's why in language is important. Even when I learned that working on government programs.
Yes.
If one word is off, it
changes the whole.
It can change billions of dollars what it was intended for. So if it say up to, I could give you 0, 1%. Yes. So that's why I say a minimum of 20% or 15% or program management, the whole, the entire program management, whatever the requirement is that allows for them to do it, because otherwise it's all your word against theirs and is no promises. And then certain things they can't even promise you, oh, we know we're going to win this. That if someone tells you, we know we're going to win this government contract 100%, I recommend you think twice. I actually had a customer reached out and they said, I'm glad you taught me that, because they had something happen and they felt very uncomfortable, and they knew based off of what I had recommended to them in the past, just walk away from those deals.
Let me tell you something. I told a guy that came up to a table where I was at an industry event, and he told me he was on an IDIQ, and or the prime was on an IDIQ. He said, I'm on the team. I said, how many people are on the team? He said 30. I said, you telling me there's 30 companies on the team? I said, let me tell you a story about, when I went to, they said they lost, did I lose sound?
Can you hear now? Can someone let us know if you can hear now?
Can you hear us? Somebody let me know if you can still hear us. Hello?
Let me put it on it.
Hello, can you hear me?
I took the presentation down because sometimes okay, Coach said he can hear.
Okay, so I went to a historically Black college. The ratio of women to men is 10 to 12, period. There were guys who were fraternity guys, and they would ask about 5 women to go to the whatever ball, right? I don't want to name any group. And these women would be running around, getting their dresses, shoes, getting their outfits. And their intention was only to take one, but all 5 of them were ready. Like they were going to get the invitation. And the reality was they're only going to choose one. And I used that example to the guy, and he kind of thought back. He's like, wow. I said, have you even met the owner of the Prime? Have you even met the BD person and the BD, whoever's in charge of business development in person? He said, no, somebody else brought them to the team. And I said, anybody who doesn't have a relationship with the Prime, I doubt you're going to get some work. You might want to start looking. So I just tell that story because it's not unique,
Yeah.
I can't hear you now.
Feedback.
Little feedback. I don't know where it's coming from. Hold on. Let me make sure it's not me. Turn that off. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear
me? Is that better? Yeah, that's better. Can you turn your volume down just a little bit?
Let me see.
I think you're good. You're good. There was a little feedback. I think you're good.
Okay. So yes, that's common that and businesses will even do that with bids like competitive full bids. They'll go and find 50 companies. I used to vet, and I will not name anyone. I used to vet some, and I still do vet for large businesses or that put together teams and things. And sometimes, I mean, of course, we always have to have a backup, and the reason why I will give them credit for that, I've been a proposal manager, and I've led like some efforts around BD where companies will drop off. We've had companies to drop off like a few days before the proposal was due. Large bids, so it's important that they have backups, but not so many, because if these people are invested and they help you with the proposal and you're using their past performance, like, come on, you owe them something. So, in my opinion, not, they don't owe you anything unless you put it in writing.
Right.
But you need to know these things because you could be one of 20. And if you put in so much into this thing and you don't, another thing small businesses do, don't put all, and not even large businesses, but more so small and mid tier, I've seen, you'll build your whole program or your strategy around 1 or 2 customers. The customer does not have to work with you. That is a choice. And even if you have a 4-year agreement, many opportunities are based upon performance and funding. So if you think you're going to be somewhere for 10 years, you may be there for 10 years. I've met many companies that have been with the same customer in the same space for 10, 15, 20 years. That does not mean you should develop your whole strategy and company's operations around one customer. Because if you lose that customer, you got to diversify your portfolio. And then also, companies say, "Oh, I'm only going to do government contracting." Okay, you want to do government contracting? That's great. It's lots of opportunity all over for government contracting. But also, what is your what do you have any backup plan, or do you have any other customers that can be your target?
Mm-hmm.
Is your company solely dedicated to government services? I talk to companies all the time that it's hard for them to pivot. Now, some companies, they're so deep into commercial that they don't have resources, they don't want to dedicate resources to build upon government. The government contracting is not like a simple and easy thing. And I think that's also a misconception. Oh, we could just go into government and get rich. Many people
they've been watching YouTube and all those.
Yeah, but it takes time and sacrifice, and people not tell you that part. Yeah, some companies win right away, but also if you won right away, ask them, did they have a learning curve if they came from commercial or they were new? Because the government, you can be an excellent accountant or engineer. When you come and look at those regulations and all these policies that they have by office and department, I went into one office on my first day. Another thing is you want to hire expertise because like Michelle, Lori, and I, and like many others on the call who may have past government experience or been a government contracting long enough, or government, we can walk into a place and we can wing it. We can figure it out. For many small businesses, that's a problem because you can send someone with all the credentials that's worked in private sector for 30 years. I feel comfortable saying that many people will have a learning curve walking into the government space because customers have so many policies, and yes, they have regulations. They even interpret those differently depending
They
on
do.
their department.
And who are you talking to as well?
Yeah, who you're talking to, because some decisions are made at the desk level. Is discretion. Is how comfortable do they feel? Because some people come and say, well, my security clearance or my policy, we did this. Okay, that some of those things are made at the professionals level, like whoever that person is in the seat, and some are made at the departmental or the executive level. That's your job as a business to do all this homework. And if you don't have time to dedicate to growing your government business, I talk to small businesses and they'll say, well, I have other customers, I don't have time to do research, we don't have time to go to all these events. Well, you may, my professional opinion, want to rethink getting into the service at that time, because at some point you're going to have to put your time, energy, and money behind getting into government contracting. It's somewhere where people gain wealth, but they also they build upon that and they sacrifice to be able to be in the space and to grow. They don't just walk in the door and just get hit with millions of dollars.
Absolutely, and I think many of the people who experience quick success, they're selling products.
Yes.
I mean, and nobody's telling people that they're selling a product. It's there. They come in with the best price, and the government says, "Yep, okay, I want 50 of those," and like mattresses and beds and PPE and
yeah. I've had companies that actually they did gain quick wealth during the pandemic. It was a pandemic, and the government needed millions of this and millions of that. And if they had that, they were able to gain success. And many of them exit. They'll exit after that, But if you have a service and you want to grow, you have to, invest in your relationships. And I don't mean I don't mean like paying for access. I mean building upon your building trust and delivering, because you can come in, you can have all this past performance, and if you do not build partnerships or if you don't build relationships with those customers, it's probably going to be short-lived or very complex for you to grow in the space. You walking in there, many agencies, they depend on consultants just as much or more than they depend on their FTEs. So if you walk in there and you say, oh, I'm just going to get this contract, we're going to sit back. It depends on your customer, but I walked into spaces where a customer gave me 50 programs to review, and this is not over exaggeration, and said, hey, we need you to learn this because you have to go to the meeting tomorrow. But they knew it was an expert. But even as an expert, that's still a lot, because you have to review these programs and be able to go speak to them. So make sure, and whoever you send on site, they represent your company. They're going to make or break the company. So because I was able to go and deliver on these things, now the customer is like, oh, well, can you do this? Another thing, that's that person or those people who are there every day, they don't only represent your company, they can expand your work. Because if I walk in and I could do so many things, which is what I do for many small and medium-sized businesses, the agency becomes, they say, oh, this company can deliver. They want to rely on you for other things. What other services do you offer? Especially if you have a way for them to do business with you that's easier and you're a small business that delivers. Yeah, you want to keep the right people and you want to make sure you follow through, and also identify ways to remediate and provide solutions, because in the end, people want you to help solve problems, deploy things smoothly. So building the relationships also has a lot to do with your personality. You can be top notch, that come from the Big 10, Big 4, whatever companies. People want to work with people they like to work with. And it is not saying that to say they're going to give you contracts or award to you because no one's giving you. You earned it. You bid it and you were vetted. But if you're difficult, come on now. Like, this is still a people game.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I had a call from a contracting officer today. I got to tell this story because the ugly stories are the ones that that really people can learn from. So this particular company wanted to get into business with VA. I said, okay, I introduced them to this contracting officer. The contracting officer, without my knowledge, had met with this business owner several times. The business owner sent me an email today saying, "Oh, I want to talk to somebody in Osdabu, and who can you help me? How can you help me find this particular person in this area?" Well, I had already connected them with the right person, right? I work in the Osdabu office, so I'm now wondering what's going on. So I forward the email to this particular contracting officer, and she says, I've talked to her at least 7 times. She does not want to listen to what I'm telling her. I've told her this is how we do this particular thing that you are selling. And so I just say that to say that, when small businesses get information, they have to listen. The government is not going to change the way it buys to fit the way you sell. You have to change the way you sell to how they buy. And I think sometimes small businesses owners I just want to give this thing. I know I do this thing and take it. And that's not how it works. And this company is doing well on the industry side. So I'm not saying they don't know what they're doing.
Well, but the people thing can come back to bite you if you go to people and someone is trying to advise you. It's not saying that you will not get any work, but also this is a massive industry, is a small industry too, because I still receive calls and outreach from people I work with 15 years ago. Actually, I received a call today from one of my colleagues when I was a federal employee over 10 years ago, and to join me on the team. So, but also you can get questions about, hey, do you know this business? Do you know this business reached out to me, or this consultant reached out to me, or we're about to hire this consultant. Have you ever worked with them? We know you work with a lot of consultants. Mm-hmm. Ask questions on both sides.
And the GovCon arena is small. OMG. I mean, it is smaller than you can ever believe. And in the DMV, it is a very small circle, right? And so, people have reputations, both from a government standpoint. People go, they're a tough customer. You don't want to deal with them. And so it can be on, from a business side, can say that about government clients, and then government buyers also have, nope, they let me down, or I canceled for convenience, just because I didn't really want to hurt them, but they weren't really doing it. Right. So all those things are so important for small business to realize that you must be coachable. If someone's telling you something, and you're not listening, there's only so many of them, right? And to even get that many tries with a federal person is huge. And so, yeah, we have to be coachable. We have to be coachable. I know Coach Sean had a question about your, I'm going to put it up here, about the rescue recovery.
Yes. So the thing about the recovery in most, and also most other federal funding that does not go directly to the state and local entities, or municipalities, you should go to your local leaders, as in congressional, your governors, your governor, your state legislator, because many of the times it's not the city council or the mayor that may miss on like not allocating the funds to where they're needed. Yes, they're local and they you expect them to know that, but sometimes the direction and instruction and priorities are coming from a much higher level. So I will reach out to the mayor to find out, the mayor's office, to find out why the funds were placed there and how they see them impacting the community. Another thing, I also recommend that small businesses, any business, large, anyone doing community work, to reach out to their local leaders. You can ask for a meeting. You can intro the work you're doing, your company. Because another thing that politicians have at most levels of government are earmarked funds. And they can earmark funds under community block grants. So if you're not introduced, or they don't know what you're doing, how can they use these funds at their discretion to fund things that are priority, that you're working on, or that can be impactful, if they don't know who you are or what you're doing? Because someone is receiving the funds, and most likely those are people who are in their face, who are at the meetings, who are at the table. And even in federal, if you follow the money, you will see, for example, with technology, if I'm not going to mention the companies or the initiatives, but if you go look at advisory councils and go look back 5 years ago for AI, blockchain, emerging tech, and go look at who's been awarded for contracts, and it's not something that I would consider, oh, this is unfair. These are the companies that held the customer's hand through the process. So they know what they're doing.
They became so much a part of the solution that the government could not separate them from their success and their future efforts.
Yes. And Michelle hit it, that is absolutely correct. And I can vouch for that, because I've had the opportunity to be a part of efforts where you pretty much you're vital in their process, because it's like almost a partner in a partnership, in getting to the intended outcome. Because if you are helping them, you're providing advice. Yes, it's a fair process. There are many businesses that are included in this. Sometimes it's not just one; it could be 10, and they're going to choose, out of those 10 businesses, who's going to do this part, that part. But if you're just coming to the table and you're saying, no, government, you said, you just awarded 500 million. They probably worked on that 5 years ago. Someone lobbied for it, someone to help them advise, and now you're coming to the table when decisions are already made and companies have already held their hand through the process. They already had partners. It's not saying it's impossible, but we have to get involved and shape opportunities before they happen.
Oh, that's some good word. Shape opportunities. And it's not just for technology, like, Sidver.
Yes.
We have to bring new approaches. And when we do our research, and that's why, and you can speak to this because you're in the belly of the beast, for lack of better words. But, we have to do the research to understand the why. Is it a problem, an issue, or a need for that agency, for that organization? They're not just doing it because of there's a reason. And when you figure out the reason, and then you look at how can you help them achieve or overcome whatever the issue is, then they love you. They want you, and you're making them look good in front of their boss, Congress, boards, whatever the appropriate, scenario is. I know you want to speak to that because I and most of us are really passionate about this relationship thing, but I don't think people understand how to be part of the solution. So what would you tell them?
Okay, so as Michelle already stated, every service or product, anything the government is putting out, is a reason for it. So you have to find out, is there an executive order? Is this just a part of their day-to-day activity? Is there a mandate? You can go find an opportunity, because every year, every quarter, they putting out their problems to the public. Do you watch the news? They on the news. The low-hanging fruit is anything that's in the media, because they want to hurry up and get that out. If it's out of the media's spotlight, if it's something that's not in their favor. So that's low-hanging fruit. You go and see their reports, you see adverse findings, you see things that they need to resolve, audit reports, grant, FISMA is the cyber IT. Any of these things, you can go create your own opportunities around their issues. But it's also in the way that you approach the customer. So if you go in, or even your state and local officials, and I see Anthony has a question, so I'm just going to tie this into that. Yes, government agencies can meet with nonprofits and for profits when it is the right time. It's all about timing, just like contracts when you're going in for a bid. If they have time, and then if one person tells you no, it may not be in their job description, or it may not be something that they would like to practice. Reach out to the leadership there and inquire about it. And I'm going to give you an example of why that's important. I had a customer that approached me about something, and I said, "Oh, I'm sure agencies do that." And they said, "No, there's no way, because we industry, we pay for that." I said, "Okay, let me reach out." So I reached out to the agency, and the agency said, "Oh yeah, some of our contracts officers, they do that free." And the customer had already paid $20,000 plus for the service, and the government does it free. So this is why you also should be aware of, what does your agency offer. Even when you see opportunities, grants, contracts, loans, they have contacts. It says administrative contacts, technical contact. Of course, they're not going to give you a competitive advantage, but you may have a question that everyone have. They'll give you the answer, or you may inquire about something that they didn't look at. Also, respond to Q&As about programs, sources sought, RFIs, industry feedback. I see people often say, "Well, the government didn't meet with me about this, and they know they know our company works on this. Did they put out a industry feedback portal forum? Did you respond?" That was an opportunity to respond, to get to be a part of the conversation. Did you join the council? Are you on any advisory committees? Did you join association? You have to do your part too. They're not just gonna come here and there's 1,000 people that's qualified, and then it's gonna be unfair. You have to do your part in approaching them and being a part of the solution.
You mean they're not gonna find you and run you down because you're a woman, veteran, or minority-owned business?
Go look at GXA Advantage or SAME and see how many more people that they can go reach out to. And then this is another thing, on many programs and initiatives. If I would they do for one, they have to do for all. So you may think they're just being mean to me. No, they may not be able to give you that answer without giving it to everyone else. So you just have to also know the rules of engagement outside of just government contracting, just how that office or the program operates. Another thing, when you go and you are approaching government agencies, you have to read the room and you have to do your research to know who you're talking to. So many times people will reach out when I've been in different positions and roles, and they'll say, "I'm calling you and you can't give me this answer. You work for us. Actually, I work for this department that doesn't provide this answer. Go to your program." So you'll need to know what your program does, your core. What does your CL, what's their responsibility in the process? Then you even have small business offices. You have SBA. You have EDA. You have all these departments and agencies. So you need to know who you're reaching out to and why, and how can they help you. I had a customer, I said, "I have to charge you much more than you would have to pay if you go and just figure this out, even if you bought like a portal report." And they said, "Well, I don't want to reach out to the agency." So an agency has a responsibility to you, especially if you're a part of a set aside or preference program. They have people who do certain things to service you and help you through the process. You're paying a consultant thousands of dollars a month or hundreds of dollars an hour for something you could pick up the phone and they have staff waiting for you to be serviced. You need to figure out who does what on the government side so that you aren't wasting money, trying to. And then when you get a consultant, I don't need to even accept certain customers because the services are free. If you come to me and say, "Chanel, can you process this form? Can you process this loan?" No, I can take you, I can show you where you go upload it, because I'm not even, and some consultant is going to do, and it's not wrong for them to do this. They're going to charge you to go upload that form. And because you didn't know that it's just one click, they're not going to say, "No, hey, all you have to do is go click this button and upload." They're going to say $3,500, 5,000, and then small businesses are saying, "Oh, I spent 20, 80,000 to get in this space just on documentation and certifications." They're free. So just learn the landscape and all the resources that you have available and who you're talking to. And if you consistently reaching out to people and they keep giving you the same answer and it's not what you want to hear, like Michelle said, the government, and I even have to give this advice to large businesses. They'll say, well, we don't do business that way. Okay. Agency is not going to change their need and the way they're going to do business. So you could either adapt to this or you might want to find another customer because they're looking for someone else to do it if you don't want to do it this way.
And the thing that I think small businesses sometimes forget is I don't care what socioeconomic category you are in.
Yes.
There are thousands of other people, other companies just like you.
Yes, yes.
And you know, when I meet with people, I just try to be very direct. I said, look, what you do is not unique. Unless you're Elon Musk, you know, Steve Jobs, what's the Tesla's guy name? I forgot. Elon Musk or Bill Gates.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you're one of those people who is creating something that has never been done or doing it in a way that has never been done, what you do is not unique. What makes it unique is who you are and how you do that thing. Yes. But what makes it even more valuable is that you do that unique thing in the way that your client wants you to.
Yes.
And they tell you in the solicitation, in their documentation, they tell you exactly what they want.
Yes. And it comes down to, like Michelle just said, the way they want you to do it, and you work well with them. Because I've been on teams, I've been in departments, and I've been an advisor where I've heard and see how government agencies operate. You can do the work, but if you're doing, for example, if an agency say, I want you to do it this way, you know that they could do it a more efficient way. I work with tech companies that all the time. The government does not need AI or blockchain for this process. It's too expensive. We could use this much more feasible way of doing it. I say, okay, we will go tell them what we recommend and what we see in the industry that could save them money. But this is their product, and if they may know something we don't force your ideas and your ways of doing the work on your customer because they have many options. So you can go in and say, well, I know they need to do it this way. Okay, guess what? They're probably trying to figure out a way, if you're difficult, for them to get rid of you or not work with you again. They have other options. And then they can even counsel, for convenience. It's different things they could do. So don't make it hard for them to work with you because the same way they brought you on, they have many companies that are waiting. And sometimes you can be as small and as large as waiting for their opportunity.
They're like, oh, I know they're not going to do well. We ready. And we can start tomorrow.
And companies sit back. I've actually been on teams where they said, Chanel, you're helping like the competitor too much, or you're helping the agency so much so that you're messing up at like strategies because like Michelle said, some people are sitting back waiting for opportunities. They know, and especially for small businesses that are new or that don't know the customer, they may say, this business is not going to last. Some people can tell that after a few meetings with you that's been in the industry. They may want to help you to help you, be able to sustain. But when you go into these government projects, they're not there to train you. The staff, you're there to provide a service. So you also, as a small business or new business, you don't go in with the impression of they have to train me, they're going to hold my hand, because there are many other companies, like Michelle said, that can walk in the same day or in 30 minutes and get it.
Exactly. And you know what I was thinking about is, there in 30 days, this is what I tell people, and I think our sister Lori says, don't rush to failure.
Yes.
And when you rush in thinking you're ready, when you get awarded that contract, generally it's 31 days from that day you have to be ready.
Yes.
Equipment, if you have to get a facility and it's not on site, all of the benefits, everything that is needed. So day one, after that kickoff meeting, they're expecting you to have trained people ready to go to provide the service. And then one of the things that I think small businesses need to realize is that when you're building your relationship with the client, and this is what I'd like for you to talk about, Chanel, is what is the best way to manage a relationship with the client so that you will get future work? What do? You said, hey, they want it this way, first of all, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a better way. When you get the contract or you're awarded the contract,
Mm-hmm.
what is a way that they can maybe bring new ideas, but at the same token, not give it away for free?
Yes. So when you're in a client space, as not the company itself. Yes, the company is
Mm-hmm.
there, but you as individuals, leaders, even you could be a program assistant. If you get, for example, I've been on projects where even the owners of companies say, like, what are you saying to the customer? I went onto one contract. They said they want only CPAs. I don't have a CPA. The owner of the company reached out and said they've never hired anyone who was not a CPA. They're so anxious, and I walked into the meeting because I was like, I don't want to be on this project. And the person called and said, "Oh, don't worry." The owner, they said, "You're not getting on it because they only take CPAs. We don't even know why they chose your resume." And went in, met one meeting. They want you to report. They want to know when you can report. So it's the conversations that you have with the customer. You find out about the customer. I did a lot of research before I went to this customer, any customer. I'm going to research you. I'm going to look at your reports, your congressional testimonies. So I know a lot about you. And that's like even with a friend, family member, new person you meet, the more you're interested in a person, you learn about them. You're making them see that you value, being in their space, building on the relationship. This is important because there's some company that didn't do the research, and I know this because I work with a lot of companies. We walk into the space, and I will even tell the company, your deck is too generic. It does not talk to the customer. It's not relatable. And there's been some instances where the customer said, what does this do for us? I told my customer or whoever I walked in with,
Mm-hmm.
when they showed me their demo or they told me what they were going to pitch, I said, that's not going to work because you're talking too much about yourself. So, yes, your company may have service companies all over the world doing this thing. Okay, you can make mention of that, tell them how you execute it, but don't let that be your conversation. Even when you're awarded, you say, "Oh, we did this like this at this agency." I've been on projects
Okay.
where even people who were new to government, like the new government leader said, "Oh, we did this in private sector that way." I knew they weren't going to be there long when they wanted to private sector their way into government and put on private sector practices on that agency, and they didn't know that. But it's because the government, in some ways, is a unique customer. So you also have to learn how they work. They have red tape for reasons. Look at, for example, PPP. I can look at that program. I looked at it right away and said, "Oh, there may be some issues with it when it first came out." And I didn't, and it's not because I worked on it on the policy at that time. I worked on these things years ago, and I keep up with them. But I can see because I worked on it enough and I researched it enough and I follow the policy.
Hasn't Chanel Glover from Ambitious Strategies been amazing? Can we get some feedback or questions in the chat? We currently have more than 83 people. I'm telling you, this is an all time high, Chanel, because you are bringing the heat. Come on with it, girl.
Yes. So when you go in front of your customer, and even when you win the award, you're still earning their trust and building a relationship. So if your customer is doing something that maybe, oh, this may be a more efficient way they could do it, or it's just wrong. I've been in customer spaces where they were doing things wrong. And it's the way you deliver it. Hey, I've been even when I was an employee, I had to mention to a manager, hey, this is actually the correct way, but I did it in private and then they wanted me to do it publicly, and I do it in a manner where it's receptive. And even if it's not, I give them other solutions or ways that they can resolve the issue. But if you go into a customer space and they are not receptive, that's fine too. You just document. You don't need to go in there and try to force people to do things. If I'm in a customer space, I even had recent issues with this, and I might know that you just doing something wrong. I'm going to say, hey, I make this recommendation. Here's the way we can resolve it. But if you want me to move forward and do this, you could just put it in writing and just give me instruction just so that I have
Mhm.
documentation. I'm not telling them why I'm asking for this, but I'm documenting and I'm doing what they asked me to do, as long as it's not illegal. Now,
Right.
I've also unfortunately been in situations where things were illegal. So that's when it's good to know who's who in the agency, because if I have to, I'll send it to the legal department or the CO, because I'm not going to do something that I know like I shouldn't be doing. In those situations, they just needed someone else to tell them, this is not something you should be doing. But also it helped to build long relationships, because I still see these leaders in recent years and people will say like, thank you for letting us know that thing. I didn't know at that time that it was something, or I'm glad you brought it to our attention. Like 5 years later, we seen this. I went to a dinner and someone said, hey, do you still work on this thing that you worked on 5 years ago for this agency? They need it again. We were just about to reach out to you. So this is about,
Wow.
yes,
Relationships
yes,
and reputation.
yes, yes,
And absolutely. The Bible says, everybody should seek to have a good name. And I truly believe that. Let me ask you, one of the things that I see that I'm really intrigued by is how some people are successful at industry events. And what, how do they choose what industry events to go to, and how do they navigate when they get there? Because a majority, from my view, this is just GI's opinion, are there window shopping.
yes,
They don't know who they're talking to. They're just walking up, talking to somebody, telling them about something that person may not even be able to help them with. So give them some advice. We are at 7:47, and we probably gonna wrap up at 8 o'clock.
okay, all right, yes. So industry events. I just did some recently, and sometimes I'll go to events. Like if I'm invited, I may not have a reason why I originally wanted to go, or before I was invited, I may say, hey, I'll just stop by. But I always serve the same. I have purpose. So like, even if I go somewhere and I may not know exactly who I want to meet with, I do research just out of serving my purpose. Like I want to be places, and I want to be there for a purpose, and I want it to be meaningful. I don't Even if I'm just going to a space, I can go into a space and I know a mayor is going to be there, a program manager. I want to say, hey, what are they working on? What is their department
Mhm.
working on? An example is I went to an event to support a customer. Two leaders, including like a very large bank executives, came to my table and they just said, hey, we see you talking to the companies, and what do you recommend we do differently? What can you see improvement? And of course, I researched this issue. This is why I came to this event. This is not my line of business. I service small businesses. It has something to do with it, but it has something to do with a specific line of business. I did a whole bunch of research around what funding is out there for this effort. How could it been avoided? Because I always want to be familiar with where I am and who's around me. Even if I don't know everything about it, I can have an informed conversation.
Mhm.
So these leaders just happened to come to my table, and I thought they were just going to say, oh, hi, like, nice to meet you, thank you for serving, which they did. They also said, so what do you think we should do different? So I gave 3 recommendations. I said, oh, I think based on this process, you can do this differently. And here's the facts. Because something I learned early in my career is that when you have an opinion about something, make sure it's not just based on all emotions. Make sure that you have facts or some solid and informed backup for it. So I said, based on this is my feeling about it, but the facts say this. So I know that this is an informed opinion. And they said, oh wow, you're right. Like we've been thinking about that, but we don't know how we could do it differently. I already had a few solutions for it.
Yep. Yep.
At that meeting, the leader said, and I was there with a customer, they said, we need you to reach out to us right away. We need you to be a part of the solution. I just happened to say, oh, by the way, you should have used AI, in my opinion, for that process. And then the bank person said, why aren't you on like the councils for lending and banking advancement with technology? And looked at the person next to me and just said, hey, we need to include her in some of these conversations going forward. That happens often because you're able to have like informed conversation. Like Michelle said, if I meet people at events I'm going to, I know something about why I'm there.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have to be a master or technical expert in the service. If I'm going to a veterans event or DOD, I know something about the people in the room
Yes.
while we're there. And I don't really track DOD like that, but I have customers that have put me on all types of meetings because they know I'm going to bring an informed response. It doesn't matter. You can put me on with a customer in Ukraine, wherever. But when you have proximity to people and you don't do your research, it kind of, also that it can make customers not judge you in a certain way, but there going to be some companies and people walking up to them informed. You want to be a part of that bunch.
And I think what you're saying, Chanel, is that, if you're going to an event, a DOD event, and it's about, let's say, a supply chain.
Yes.
The speakers are going to tell you the focus of the event and the conversation. Yes. What I find is most people are so busy looking at the title of the person speaking instead of the issue and the issues that they're talking about, that they're asking the senior leaders or the speaker to address or bring clarity to, or to say, these are the kind of, issues or solutions we're looking for. Instead, they're so busy. Secretary so-and-so is going to be there. General so-and-so is going to be there. No, look at the issue. Then, take like what Chanel said, do your homework, find out what's happening around those issues. Why are they talking about, supply chain issues? How does that impact the mission of, whatever DOD or whatever agency it is? Because there was one lady, I love it. She said to me, I'm going to this event, and it's an economic development event at my city. And I said, well, who's going to be there? And she named the title. And she said, I'm going to go talk to her. And I said,
about
why? And what are you going to say? Well, I'm just going to tell her she spoke and she did a great job. Wow.
Yeah. So this is a perfect example. And you can do that, but then someone walk up to that person and say, oh, I know you all spoke about this issue. Like my company, we can that, we write about that all the time. We have blogs on it. We specialize in this. We have a partner that worked on this. We've been tracking it for 5 years. Someone is to be able to have an informed conversation about it. So like Michelle was saying, when you go to these events, you don't have to know everything. But what if you do meet the keynote speakers and you go and just say, because that's another thing. Many people want to just say, oh, I went and I met the president of the United States. So I met this congressional member. And they were sitting right beside a program manager and discounted this person's role in the
program. So true.
And the program manager is actually the person who I would have more conversation with because they're more accessible and they're a part of the decision-making team. When, yes, hey, Mr. President, nice to meet you. Okay, Sophie. But, I want to talk to this person who I would be working with day to day. And that's another thing. When you are going for this higher level person or the chief or the general or whoever is involved, more than likely, you're not going to be working with them. And even if you are, they're dependent on their staff most of the time for some level of input and sometimes exact decision-making because they know more about the day-to-day operation. They're there for that leader is there for strategy, budget decisions. They're using the data and the information from their staff and the feedback to make decisions. So you can, discount someone's role or their authority in a process or what they can do for you. Even if you meet people, you may meet a CEO and they don't have the work that you're working on, or core or program manager, because you were pleasant, or they may know another CEO that reached out to them and said, hey, I need this service. You get recommended. They say, oh, this company is very informed about blah. And then if you meet someone and they're not in your service area, don't force your services on people if they're not interested. You may get
There's nothing worse.
with a general conversation.
There's nothing worse than trying to sell something to someone that they don't buy.
Yes, yes,
There's nothing worse. And then inundating their email boxes with that stuff does not help either.
yes,
You know, one of the things that I think, that's so amazing about this conversation, I'm seriously intrigued by this whole relationship piece, this industry engagement piece, to the point I'm obsessed in researching it, identifying what people can and can't do, because there's so much information on the budget and the procurement or acquisition process. But I don't care what opportunity you have, a person is going to make a decision. So doing business with people who you know, like, and trust, it's a person who's going to make the final decision, or a group of people, if you're talking about the tech eval, team, is going to make a decision as to, yes, this is the company that can best solve our problem at the lowest risk for the best price.
yes.
That's what it's all about. But it's a person that's going to do that. It's a person that's going to give you that inside view, right? About, hey, you can see everything on the internet, but a person,
Yes.
15, 30 minutes of you having done your homework, asking the right question, can give you an insight that will make your proposal so unique in a way that they go, that company gets us. That company is going to be a great partner in where we're going. So, we're at 7:57. Give us some final words. Chanel, we have talked about the opportunities at the city and state level with the American Rescue Recovery Act. Mm-hmm. The money's going to run out in December of this year. It started 3 years ago. So if you have not gotten in touch with your local, community, do that, engage them, knock on the door. I believe you drill in your own backyard. But I want to give you, I want to wrap that up because there's enough on there, but I want you to give small businesses and our 89 people watching Chanel's top 3 tips for success.
Do your research. The data is out there. The portals, for the most part, you can pay for things, but there's so much free information out there. Go and look at, when I say research, not just SAM and US and GSA, just GSA Advantage. Go to the agency websites. There's so much information on agencies like GSA, USDA. Go to their websites. Look into their programs. Your state and local levels. Go to the website. Go look at small business. Most of them have small business offices. They have lending, financing things. So that's the type of research. Listen to your hearings about the congressional issues that touch on your line of business. You will learn so much from that, more than you will about the data that's out there. This is where you're going to find out when people are testifying, giving all the details about what's going on and and then you can also find out who's really doing the work, because they're going to mention who's working on it. Some of these people are coming to testify. You're going to hear about the issues they're having, deficiencies, advancements, progress. So do that type of homework. Then when you go to a government customer as a small business, make sure you are ready. When I say ready, not just your technical capabilities. Have you been informed about this customer space? Does this customer have different accounting practices? Do they have policies that pertain to their department, provisions, special waivers? Have you went and looked at the regulations that pertain to the programs that you're going to be working on? Do you know the security requirements for your business? All of these things are things you can go and find. And then another thing, don't limit yourself to just your line of business that you're comfortable with. Many government customers are looking for businesses that can do, yes, some have a special expertise and they scale and they do an amazing job in that space, But many companies that I've seen scale is because they either have partners or they're willing to do things. The customer, you can be there for program management, and that customer can come to you and say, "Can you help us with this AI project or this engineering project?" And if you say no, we don't do that. Okay, guess what? If they come and ask me that, I have enough partners that I'm going to say yes, and we're going to figure it out. Of course, you don't tell a customer you could do something you know you can't do, because then you have false claims, things you're exaggerating or you can't do it. But if you have partners and you want to scale, or you have someone on your team that could deliver this service, yeah, this is how you can scale in the government space. So be open to other things besides the vision you have for your company. You may stick to, because it's your mission, is what you want to do. But when you're in government contracting, if you are open to more things, you may open the doors to opportunities. You never know what existed. I have companies that have scaled significantly in roles and lines of business that they were not focused on, but their customer needed it and they were able to deliver.
And I'm so glad you said that, because one of the themes of the demystifying government contracting that you're a regular member on. For those of you who are watching who have not tuned in, every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m., Chanel and many of the people that you've seen this week are part of that community. You can come in. It's LinkedIn audio where you can listen and cook, listen and work out, listen and be at your kids' games. That's the reason we do the audio. But I'm so glad, you talked about say yes, that you can do it, because one of the themes has been, let's do our business together.
Yes.
So if we do our business together, it doesn't mean we're doing business with each other immediately, but we're doing it together in community, so that when these opportunities come up that we may not necessarily have the prime capability in, we've already built a community of trust of people that we can then say, hey, I've got somebody, and you can go to somebody without having to do a 0 to 100 vetting, because you've been building relationship. You've been getting to know who they are, the character and the values of their company, the capabilities, the kind of things they are. So, I'm so glad that you joined us. I do want to say thank you all for joining, all 92 people. Chanel, look at that. Let's give Chanel some appreciation in the chat. This has been a masterclass, and it is just a thumbnail of what she really has to offer. If you want to be my guest on this LinkedIn Live GI Factor, please, you can nominate somebody, send me a DM. The GI Factor is all about inspiration, government inspiration, innovation, insights, and impact. If you know somebody who's inspirational, who's a thought leader, please recommend them. I want to let Chanel have the last say. How can they contact you? How can you serve them? Please let them know before we end.
Yes. So I have limited capacity, only because I would like to serve more government customers, collaboration. So if you have a collaborative effort, you're in tech, you are creating equity, and you have innovation projects that can impact the masses, I would love to work with you. I do like to work with small business. I love to work with small businesses, but what you can do before you come to a consultant like myself is go and get the free technical assistance. Go to sba.gov. Look up your free technical assistance center. Please use those resources, because if you do not use the resources, then they get eliminated or people think you aren't interested. You can send me a DM if you've already gone through the path and you feel like you're ready for a consultant. I do like to work with and coach companies that are ready. But if you're just starting out, and I wouldn't say you invest in, consultants at this very early stage, unless you feel that that's what you want to do. Use the free resources at the SBA and your state and local levels. You can DM me, and I can also help you, recommend you to other, resources. Or if you see something you have a question about, I can direct you to those resources. But for the most part, I like to work with businesses who are ready to work right away. Like I work in capture, business development and capture as well. So that is, I can help you identify customers, build out a strategy, a pipeline, and let's go and secure the work. But you have to be ready. It's things you need to do before then. Tech companies, startups, I'm accepting now, and that's because there's lots of funding and initiatives around innovation. So you can DM me or you can reach out at AS LLC. So A is in Apple, S is in Sam, LLC at ambitiousstrategies.com. But otherwise, take advantage of all the free resources that are available.
Chanel, girl, you are the beast. You killed it tonight. And I'm so honored. I get to spend time with you every week, along with the amazing humans, Lori Smith, Marvin Powell, Coach Sean Austin, Linda Gray, Lisa Anderson, James Davis, many, many others. But to have you to myself, girl. Oh, I forgot. I shared you with 96 people. But let's do it again. Okay. And thanks for all that you're doing in the community. There are companies whose legacy wealth are going to be tied to the work you're doing, and what a tremendous legacy. And I want to thank everybody for joining. I'm so honored that on a Friday night, you all decided this was the place to be. I can't tell you how much that touches me, because it confirms my mission and ministry to empower, educate, and enable, small businesses. So thanks for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow. I know it's Saturday, but come on back, because tomorrow we're going to be talking about, leadership and enabling your team and building community for business success with Lori Smith and Anthony Peters. And we'll see you later. Share this with somebody, and good night. Thanks so much.
Thank you for attending, everyone.
Thank you.